You are checking your numbers on a Tuesday night the same way you have checked them every Tuesday and Friday for the past 11 years, standing at the kitchen counter in the yellow light of the overhead bulb, the ticket held between two fingers, the television murmuring in the background. You are 34 years old. You work as a logistics coordinator for a mid-sized freight company, which means you spend 8 hours a day inside a spreadsheet, moving imaginary boxes across a digital map of the country, making sure other people's things arrive on time. You are good at your job. You are not passionate about it. You have $4,200 in savings, $23,000 in student loan debt, and a lease on a one-bedroom apartment that renews in March. You are not miserable. You are simply waiting, though you have never named it that way out loud. The numbers come up on screen. You look at your ticket. You look at the screen again. Your brain does something strange, a kind of full stop, the way a car engine sounds when you accidentally put it in neutral at speed. You put the ticket down on the counter. You pick it up again. You are looking at 6 numbers that match, in sequence, exactly the 6 numbers on the television. The jackpot is $300 million. The lump sum, after federal and state taxes, will be somewhere around $112 million. You do not know that yet. Right now you only know that your hands are shaking and that you have not told anyone you play the lottery, not even your sister, because you were always a little embarrassed about the optimism it implied. You do not sleep. You sit in the kitchen until 4 a.m., and you think about what it means to have a secret this large and no one to call. By morning, you have made one decision, the only smart one you will make in the next 72 hours. You say nothing to anyone. You call the lottery commission at 8 a.m. when they open. They tell you to sign the back of the ticket immediately, in ink, right now, before you do anything else. You do. They tell you to bring 2 forms of ID, the original ticket, and ideally an attorney. You ask them why an attorney. They say, gently, that you will understand when you arrive. You call in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. You find an estate attorney through a Google search, pick the one whose website looks the most boring, and leave a voicemail explaining that you may have won a significant lottery prize and need counsel before claiming. She calls back in 11 minutes. Her name is Diane. She is 56, has handled 3 prior lottery clients, and her first question is whether you have told anyone. When you say no, she says, good. Keep it that way for now. We have work to do before you walk into that office. You meet Diane the next morning. She explains the structure of a claim through a trust, the difference between taking the lump sum versus annuity, the tax implications of each, the legal exposure that comes with public disclosure of your identity in a state that does not allow anonymous claims. She is not warm, exactly, but she is precise, and precision is what you need right now because your brain has not fully caught up to what is happening. You listen. You take notes on a legal pad she slides across the table. When you leave her office 2 hours later, you have a plan. The trust is filed within 4 days. You claim the prize as a legal entity, not as yourself. The check, the actual wire transfer, arrives in the trust account 17 days after your initial call to the Lottery Commission. The number that settles into the account is $112,400,000 after taxes. You look at it on your laptop screen in the same kitchen where you checked the ticket, in the same yellow light, and you feel something that is not happiness exactly. It is more like vertigo. The kind you get when you look down from a great height, and your body sends a signal that something irrevocable is happening and that you had better decide, immediately, what kind of person you are going to be about it. The first month, you do almost nothing. Diane advises this. You continue going to work. You continue paying your rent. You order the same groceries. Your coworkers notice nothing. Your sister calls on Sunday as usual and you talk for 45 minutes about her kids and her husband's promotion, and you say nothing. You are sitting on top of $112 million and you are talking about whether your nephew's soccer coach is too hard on the 8-year-olds. And some part of you understands that this ordinariness is a gift, maybe the last clean one you will get for a while. In the second month, Diane connects you with a wealth management team. There are 3 of them, a financial advisor named Marcus who is composed and methodical, a tax strategist named Paul who speaks almost entirely in hypotheticals, and a private banker from an institution you have only ever seen advertised in airports. They sit across from you at a long table and they treat you with a particular kind of deference that is unfamiliar and slightly uncomfortable, the way a new coat fits before it breaks in. Marcus asks you what your goals are. You tell him you want to be careful. He nods as if you have said something wise, but you sense that everyone who sits in this chair says they want to be careful, and that caution rarely survives contact with the actual money. You make your first real decision in week 6. You allocate $60 million into a diversified investment portfolio, index funds, municipal bonds, a modest position in real estate investment trusts, structured to generate roughly $2.1 million per year in income without touching the principal. This is the floor. This is the decision that means you will never have to make a panicked choice because you are running out of money. Marcus calls it the foundation. You call it the thing that lets you sleep. The remaining $52 million sits in reserve while you figure out what you actually want to do with your life, which turns out to be a much harder question than you expected, because for 11 years your life has been organized around the logistics of surviving it, and now that survival is no longer the problem, you are left with the raw material of freedom, and no blueprint for what to build. You quit your job in month 3. You do not make a scene. You give 2 weeks' notice, cite a personal situation, and shake hands with your manager on a Friday afternoon. No one suspects anything. You have been quietly unremarkable for long enough that your departure lands like a pebble in water. A ripple, then nothing. You move out of your apartment in month 4 and into a rented house in a quieter part of the city while you look for something permanent. You buy a used car, not new, not expensive, a 4-year-old sedan in gray, because you are not ready to become someone other people look at yet. The first time someone finds out, it is your sister. You tell her in person, in her kitchen, on a Sunday afternoon in month 5. You have rehearsed it. It still doesn't go the way you planned. She cries. Then she laughs. Then she asks if you are serious 3 separate times. Then she hugs you, and then she pulls back and looks at you with something complicated in her eyes. Relief and love and something else, something tentative, a recalibration happening in real time. You recognize it because you have been watching it happening yourself for 5 months. It is the look of someone trying to figure out the rules of a game that just changed without warning. You give her $2 million. Not because you calculated it as the right number, but because it is the amount that, when you say it out loud in your head, doesn't feel like it's buying her love or managing her expectations or turning your relationship into a transaction. It feels like the amount you would give someone you trust with your whole self. She accepts it quietly. She does not spend it recklessly. She calls you more often now, and there are moments when the calls feel the same as they always did, and other moments when you can feel both of you navigating something invisible and unnamed. This is the cost you didn't anticipate, not the money, but the new geometry of every relationship you walk back into. You tell 4 other people in the first year. Your closest friend from college, who reacts with the same disbelief as your sister and then, within 2 weeks, sends you a business plan for a restaurant he's always wanted to open. Your parents, who are in their 60s and have spent 30 years worrying about money, and whose relief is so physical you can see it change the way they hold their shoulders. A therapist named Carol, who you begin seeing in month 4 because you read somewhere that sudden wealth is a legitimate psychological stressor, and you are determined not to let it make you stupid. And Diane, who already knows, but with whom you now have a different kind of conversation, not about protecting assets, but about what you actually want your life to be for. In the second year, you make 2 significant mistakes and 1 very good decision. The first mistake is the friend with the restaurant plan. You give him $800,000 to open it because you believe in him, and because it feels good to say yes to someone you love. The restaurant opens, does reasonably well for 14 months, then closes when he and his business partner have a falling out so severe it ends their friendship and nearly ends yours. You lose the investment. More than that, you lose 6 months of the friendship itself to the awkward, loaded silence of someone who knows they cost you something. You do not mention the money. You wait. Eventually, he calls. You talk about other things. The friendship survives, barely, like a plant that got too dry but didn't die. You learn something from this that no one told you directly but that you now understand viscerally. Money given to people you love is never purely financial. It carries the full weight of the relationship, and if the investment fails, something in the relationship absorbs the damage whether you intend it to or not. The second mistake is the house. You buy a property in the 11th month, 6,400 square feet, 9-foot ceilings, a pool, a guest wing. Because Marcus says real estate is a reasonable allocation, and because you have been living in a rented house for long enough that you are ready to stop moving. What you do not account for is how the house feels when you are alone in it. It is too large for one person. Every room you are not in becomes a kind of accusation. You rattle around in it for 7 months before you accept that you bought a house that fits the image of what a wealthy person is supposed to have, rather than a house that fits the shape of your actual life. You sell it at a modest loss in year 2 and buy something smaller, 2,800 square feet, for bedrooms, a yard that requires attention but not a staff. You feel, immediately, more like yourself. The good decision is the foundation. You establish it at the end of year 1 with an initial endowment of $8 million, focused on educational access, specifically, covering tuition, housing, and incidental costs for first-generation college students at 3 state universities. You hire an executive director, a small program staff, and a board of 5 people who know things you don't. You attend quarterly board meetings. You read the reports. In the second year, the foundation funds 214 students. In the third year, 389. You begin receiving letters, actual handwritten letters, from students and parents, and you read every one, and this is the part of your new life that does not feel complicated or vertigo-inducing. It feels, simply, like the right use of a thing that fell into your hands without warning. By year 3 you have built something resembling a routine. You wake at 6 a.m. You run. You spend 2 to 3 hours a day on foundation work, emails, calls, reviewing applications, meeting with the director. You have taken up woodworking, badly, in a workshop you built in the garage of the smaller house, because you need something that requires your hands and produces a tangible result, and does not involve a screen. You are not good at it yet. You are learning. In the afternoons you read, or you travel, deliberately, not extravagantly, to places you have always wanted to understand rather than simply to see. You spent 3 weeks in Lisbon in the fall of year 2. 2 weeks in Kyoto in the spring. You travel alone mostly, though your sister came with you to Portugal, and it was, surprisingly, one of the least complicated experiences of the past 3 years. You are not happy in the way you imagined you would be when you were checking lottery numbers in the yellow kitchen light. That version of happiness was simpler, a relief from pressure, a lifting of weight. What you have instead is something more textured and more demanding. You have the freedom to make choices that actually reflect who you are, which means you are now fully responsible for those choices in a way you never were before. When your life was structured by constraint, by the lease, the job, the budget, you could attribute its shape to external forces. Now the shape is entirely yours, and that is both exhilarating and quietly terrifying. The questions that occupied you in the first weeks, should I tell people, how much should I give, what should I buy, have been replaced by slower, heavier questions. What do you owe the world when the world has given you something this disproportionate? How do you remain the same person, curious, modest, capable of ordinary joy, when your material circumstances have become so radically different from almost everyone around you? How do you build real relationships in a context where the power differential between you and most people you meet is large enough to distort everything? You are in year 4 now. The foundation is growing. The portfolio continues to generate income you cannot spend at the rate it arrives, which means it accumulates, which means the number keeps getting larger in a way that feels almost absurd. Marcus has had 2 conversations with you about charitable vehicles that would allow you to give more aggressively without tax consequences. You are thinking about it. You are thinking about a lot of things. There is a woman you have been seeing for 6 months who knows about the money. You told her on the 3rd date, because you learned early that concealing it creates a different, worse problem, and who seems, so far, to be navigating it with the same careful honesty you are trying to bring to everything. You do not know where it goes. You are paying attention. The lottery ticket is in a fireproof box in your office, still signed on the back in the ink you applied 11 minutes after the numbers came up. You have never taken it out to look at it again. You don't need to. What happened that Tuesday night is not the story. What happened after, all the decisions, the mistakes, the reckonings, the slow construction of a life that is genuinely yours. That is the story. And it is not finished. You are not sure it ever will be. That is the part no one tells you about the $300 million. It doesn't end anything. It only begins.